The discovery. The silence of deep space was broken by a sound that should not exist. It was faint, barely registering on the sensors of the Valerian exploration vessel Star Seeker, but it was there. A rhythmic pulse, transmitted on ancient emergency frequencies that had not been used in over 2,000 cycles. Captain Zelder stood before the main viewport of his ship, his silver-scaled skin reflecting the distant starlight. His species, the Valorians, had been exploring the cosmos for millennia. They were peaceful beings who valued knowledge above all else. Their slender bodies and large luminous eyes had evolved on a gentle world of warm seas and mild climates. Violence was foreign to them. Danger was something they observed from a safe distance and recorded in their vast databases. The bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. Science Officer Miralyn was hunched over her console, her delicate fingers dancing across the holographic displays. Navigator Telmore plotted courses through the empty sector they were mapping. It was supposed to be a routine survey mission, cataloging star systems far from the established trade routes of the Galactic Assembly. Then the signal arrived. Miralyn's head lifted sharply. Her eyes widened, the bioluminescent patterns on her cheeks flickering with surprise. She studied her readings for several long moments before speaking. "Captain, I am detecting an artificial signal. It appears to be a distress beacon." Zelder turned from the viewport. In all his years of exploration, distress signals in uncharted space were rare. Most civilized species stayed within known territories. Those who ventured beyond rarely survived to send signals. "Location?" he asked. "Approximately 3 stellar units ahead. The signal is weak and intermittent, but definitely artificial." "Any identification codes?" Miralyn worked her controls, filtering through layers of data. She frowned, which for a Valerian meant a subtle shift in the pattern of their facial scales. "No standard codes. The frequency is ancient, pre-assembly era. Whatever is broadcasting that signal has been out here for a very long time." Zeldar considered this information carefully. His people were cautious by nature. Approaching unknown vessels could be dangerous. But they were also bound by the ancient laws of space. All distress signals must be investigated. Lives might depend on their response. Alter course to intercept. Proceed with caution. Raise defensive screens and have medical teams standing by. The Star Seeker changed direction, its elegant form gliding through the void like a creature swimming through dark water. As they drew closer to the source of the signal, their sensors began gathering more information. What they found confused them. "Captain," Miralyn reported, "I am reading a vessel. Size indicates it is larger than our ship, possibly a long-range explorer or colony vessel. But the design is unlike anything in our database." "Show me." The main view screen flickered to life, displaying a magnified image of the object ahead. What Zelder saw made him lean forward in his chair. The ship was massive, easily twice the length of the Star Seeker. But it looked wrong. Where Valerian vessels were smooth and organic in design, flowing curves that minimized resistance and maximized efficiency, this ship was angular and brutal. It was constructed of dark metal plating, scarred and pitted from what must have been decades of exposure to micrometeorites and radiation. Parts of the hull were scorched black, evidence of fires or energy weapon impacts. One entire section of the rear appeared to have been torn away, exposing twisted metal frameworks and frozen debris. Yet somehow, impossibly, the ship was still intact. Still transmitting. Still maintaining some level of internal atmosphere according to their sensors. What could survive such damage? Telmore whispered from his navigation station. He was young for a Valerian, barely 200 cycles old, and this was his first deep space assignment. "I do not know," Zelda replied honestly. "Miralyn, what else can you tell me?" The science officer worked quickly, running multiple scans simultaneously. Her expression grew more puzzled with each result. "The hull composition is primarily iron alloys with carbon fiber reinforcement. Very primitive materials. Our estimates suggest the technology level is approximately 1,500 cycles behind current Galactic Assembly standards." 1,500 cycles? Zelda repeated. That was barely beyond the steam age for most species. Ships of that technological era could barely reach their own moons, let alone travel between stars. "Confirmed, Captain. But here is what troubles me most." She paused, rechecking her data as if not believing it herself. "I am detecting power readings. Minimal but present. Something inside that ship still functions. And Captain, I am reading life signs." The bridge fell silent. Everyone turned to look at Miralyn. "Life signs? How many?" "Difficult to determine with certainty. The hull is thick and our sensors are having trouble penetrating. but I count at least 6, possibly more. They are weak, consistent with deep hibernation or cryostasis. Zeldar stood from his chair and walked to Miralin's station. He studied the readings himself, hoping to find an error. There was none. Something was alive aboard that broken vessel, suspended in sleep, waiting. Can you determine what species? No, Captain. The biological signatures do not match anything in our database. Whatever they are unknown to the Galactic Assembly. This changed everything. The discovery of a new spacefaring species was one of the rarest events in galactic history. It had not happened in over 3,000 cycles. And to find them here, in the void between stars, aboard a ship that should have been destroyed long ago, raised countless questions. Attempt to access their computer systems, Zeldar ordered. I want to know where they came from and how they ended up here. Miralin worked for several minutes, using the advanced technology of the Star Seeker to interface with the primitive systems of the derelict. Finally, she succeeded in establishing a connection. I have access to their navigation logs. Transferring data now. Information began flowing across the screens. The bridge crew watched as star charts appeared, showing a trajectory that originated from a sector of space the Galactic Assembly had designated as the Forbidden Expanse. It was a region avoided by all civilized species, known for its hostile stellar environments and dangerous spatial anomalies. But the navigation data went deeper, pointing to a specific system within that forbidden space. A small yellow star with several orbiting planets. One of those planets was highlighted in the logs, marked with symbols none of them could read. Can you translate their language? Zeldar asked. Working on it. Their linguistic structure is complex, but our computers are making progress. Another minute passed. Then Miralin gasped softly. Captain, I have a partial translation. The planet of origin has a name in their language. They call it Earth. Earth? Zeldar repeated the word slowly, testing how it felt. What do our archives tell us about this world? Miralin accessed the Galactic Assembly's planetary database, searching for any mention of a world called Earth or matching the coordinates from the navigation logs. What she found made her scales pale to an almost white shade. Captain, there is a record. It is old, dating back nearly 4,000 cycles to the early expansion period. A survey probe was sent to that sector before it was declared forbidden. The probe managed to scan several planets before it was destroyed by radiation storms. What did it find? Miralin's voice became very quiet. One planet in the habitable zone. Designation in our old records, Planet 7-7-3-9. It was flagged and classified but never approached for detailed study. What classification? She looked up at her captain, her large eyes filled with something close to fear. Class-15, Captain. The highest danger rating we have. The survey notes describe it as a death world. An environment so hostile that carbon-based life should not be able to exist there, let alone evolve to intelligence. The words hung in the air like a physical weight. Every species in the Galactic Assembly knew what a Class-15 designation meant. Such worlds were legends, cautionary tales told to young explorers. Planets where the very atmosphere was poison, where the surface was scoured by radiation, where predators lurked in every shadow and microscopic organisms could dissolve flesh in hours. Survival on a Class-15 was considered impossible. And yet, the ship before them had come from such a world. The beings sleeping in cryostasis aboard that battered vessel had been born on a planet that should have killed them before they could develop fire, let alone space travel. This cannot be accurate, Telmore said from his station. No species could evolve intelligence on a Class-15. The survival pressures would be too extreme. They would never advance beyond basic animal instincts. The data does not lie, Miralin replied. The navigation logs are clear. This ship departed from the third planet of that yellow star system. The same planet our ancestors classified as a death world 4,000 cycles ago. Zeldar made his decision. Fear and caution warred with curiosity and duty in his mind, but in the end, there was only one choice he could make. Prepare a boarding team. We are going inside that ship. I need to know what kind of beings could survive a Class-15 world. I need to understand how they built a vessel capable of crossing the void. And I need to know if they are still alive. The boarding team assembled in the Star Seeker's docking bay. 6 Valorians in protective environmental suits, equipped with scanning devices, translation equipment, and emergency medical supplies. They carried no weapons. Valorians did not believe in weapons. Their suits were designed to protect them from hostile environments, not hostile beings. Zeldar led the team himself. Beside him stood Miralin and their medical officer, a gentle soul named Prendar who specialized in xenobiology. The other 3 were engineers and technicians who might be needed to interface with the alien ship systems. The Star Seeker maneuvered carefully alongside the damaged vessel. Their docking clamps extended, searching for a suitable airlock. It took several attempts to find one that was both intact and functional. When they finally achieved a seal, warning indicators flashed across their displays. The internal atmosphere is breathable for carbon-based life, Prendar reported, studying his medical scanner. Nitrogen and oxygen mixture, similar to many Class 3 and Class 4 worlds. But the oxygen concentration is higher than any environment we consider safe. 21% of the total atmosphere. That is a corrosive level, one of the engineers noted. Extended exposure would damage our tissues. Our suits will protect us, Zeldar said. Proceed with boarding. The airlock cycled open with a hiss of equalizing pressure. The boarding team crossed the threshold into the alien vessel. Their suit lights cut through the darkness, revealing a corridor that was utterly unlike anything they had seen before. Where Valerian ships were spacious and elegant, with smooth walls and soft lighting designed to promote calm and clarity of thought, this ship was cramped and utilitarian. The walls were bare metal, lined with exposed pipes and cables. Everything was bolted or welded in place with a brutal efficiency that suggested the builders cared only about function, not comfort. The damage was visible everywhere. Panels had been torn from walls, exposing the ship's inner workings. Some sections of the corridor were scorched black from electrical fires. In one place, the floor had buckled, forcing the team to climb carefully over the twisted metal. How did they survive in here? Marilyn wondered aloud. These conditions are barely better than open space. Perhaps they did not, Prendar suggested quietly. Perhaps we are here too late. But as they moved deeper into the ship, following the life sign readings on their scanners, they began to see signs that the vessel had once been occupied. There were sleeping quarters, tiny rooms with bunks attached to the walls. A communal area with tables and chairs bolted to the floor. A kitchen facility with equipment for preparing food, though none of the Valorians could identify what type of food. They found what appeared to be a command center, similar in concept to their own bridge but far more primitive. Manual controls instead of thought interface systems. Physical switches and buttons instead of holographic displays. Display screens that must have shown information in flat two-dimensional formats. This technology is ancient, one of the engineers said, examining a control panel. But look at how they maintained it. Everything is repaired, reinforced, modified. They knew this ship was outdated, so they adapted. They made it work through pure determination. Finally, they reached the source of the life signs. A sealed chamber deep in the lower sections of the ship. The door was marked with symbols in the alien language, but the Valerian translation software had made progress. The words appeared on their suit displays: cryo-storage. Emergency use only. Zeldar examined the door control panel. It was unpowered, but the engineers were able to connect one of their portable power units. With a grinding sound that spoke of long disuse, the door began to open. Cold mist spilled out into the corridor as the chamber's seal broke. The Valorians stepped inside cautiously, their lights sweeping across rows of cryopods. Most were dark and inactive. But 6 of them glowed with a soft blue light, their status indicators showing active stasis fields. Through the transparent covers of these pods, the Valorians saw them for the first time. They were bipedal, roughly the same height as a Valerian but built more solidly. Where Valorians were slender and graceful, these beings were dense and muscular. Their skin ranged in color from light pink to deep brown. They had hair growing from their heads in various colors and lengths. Their faces were flat with forward-facing eyes, predator eyes designed to track prey. Look at their bone structure, Prendar said, his medical training overcoming his fear. The skeletal density is extreme. Muscle attachment points suggest incredible physical strength. And those teeth. He zoomed in his scanner on one being's face. Those are omnivore dentition. They can eat both plants and meat. Predators, Telmore whispered. They evolved as hunters. More than that, Marilyn added, studying the data. Look at their hands. Opposable thumbs, fine motor control, tool-using adaptations. They are not mindless predators. They are intelligent predators. The most dangerous combination in nature. Zeldar moved closer to one of the pods. The being inside was female, if his understanding of biological dimorphism was correct. She appeared young and wore a uniform with symbols and patches that likely indicated rank and mission designation. Her face was peaceful in sleep, unaware that aliens were studying her. Can we wake them? He asked. Prendar examined the cryopod controls. Yes. The system is designed for revival. It appears to be automated, actually. I believe it is set to wake them when certain conditions are met, possibly when another ship approaches. We could trigger the revival sequence. Do it. Start with one. We will assess the situation before waking the others. The medical officer worked carefully with the pod controls. After several minutes, he found the correct sequence. Warning lights flashed on the pod as internal systems activated. The blue glow intensified, then began to fade. Mist cleared from inside the transparent cover. The being inside stirred. Her eyes opened, brown eyes that focused slowly, confusion evident in her expression. Then she saw the Valorians standing around her pod, alien faces staring down at her through their helmet visors. To their surprise, she did not panic. Her eyes widened and she sat up slowly as the pod cover slid open. She looked at each of them carefully, assessing them with an intelligence that was immediately obvious. Then she tried to speak, but her throat was dry from long sleep. She coughed and tried again. The words meant nothing to the Valorians, but their translation software was working. Within seconds, text appeared on their displays, and then the synthesized voice of their computer spoke in Valerian. Are you real? Or am I dreaming? Zeldar stepped forward. He spoke, and his computer translated his words into the alien language. You are not dreaming. I am Captain Zeldar of the Valerian exploration vessel Star Seeker. We detected your distress beacon and came to investigate. What is your name? The being looked at him for a long moment. Then, incredibly, she smiled, an expression that revealed those omnivore teeth. In most species, baring teeth was a sign of aggression. But somehow Zeldar sensed this was different. This was not a threat. This was something else. Relief, perhaps. Or welcome. Captain Sarah Chin, she said. United Earth Space Agency. Mission Commander of the vessel Persistence. She paused and her smile grew wider. You have no idea how good it is to see another intelligent face. Even an alien one. How long have we been asleep? We do not know how long you have been in stasis, Zeldar replied honestly. But your ship appears to have been drifting for at least 3 of your solar cycles, possibly longer. 3 years, Sarah Chin repeated. She closed her eyes for a moment, processing this information. Then she opened them again and looked directly at Zeldar. I suppose you want to know where we came from. Yes. Your navigation logs indicate you traveled from a planet designated Class-15 in our classification system. A Deathworld. We need to understand how this is possible. Sarah Chen's expression changed. The smile remained, but something else entered her eyes. Pride, perhaps. Or defiance. You want to know about Earth, she said. You want to know how we survived there. You want to know what kind of beings could come from such a place. She stood from the cryopod, her movements careful but strong. She was recovering quickly from years of stasis, faster than should have been possible. The answer is simple, she continued. We are human. Earth made us tough. Earth made us survivors. Earth made us refuse to die no matter what the universe threw at us. She looked around at the damaged ship, at her sleeping crew, at the aliens who had found them drifting in the void. And now, she said, we are ready to show the galaxy what humanity can do. The truth of humanity. The medical bay of the Star Seeker had never been designed for someone like Sarah Chin. The examination table was too soft for her denser bone structure. The atmospheric mix was wrong for her respiratory system. The lighting was too dim for her eyes. Yet she sat there patiently, allowing Prendar to run his scanners over her body while the other Valorians watched from a safe distance. Captain Zeldar observed from the doorway. In the hours since they had revived Sarah Chin, his understanding of the universe had been fundamentally challenged. Everything he thought he knew about the limits of biological adaptation had been proven wrong by the existence of this single human being. Your cardiovascular system is remarkable, Prendar said, studying his display with a mixture of fascination and horror. Your blood uses iron-based hemoglobin to transport oxygen. Iron. A metal that is toxic to most carbon-based life forms. It circulates through your body constantly, never corroding, never causing harm. Sarah nodded as the translation software converted Prendar's words into English. Iron is pretty common in human biochemistry. We need it to survive. Without enough iron in our diet, we get sick. You consume metal as nutrition? Marilyn asked from her position near the wall. She had been recording everything, creating what would become the most important xenobiological documentation in galactic assembly history. Well, we consume foods that contain iron. Meat, certain plants, supplements. Our bodies extract the iron and use it. Sarah paused, noting the expressions on the Valerian faces. Their scales had paled to an almost white shade, a sign of distress she was beginning to recognize. I am guessing your species does not do that? We use copper-based blood, Prendar explained. As do most spacefaring species. Iron would poison us within hours. The fact that you have evolved to not only tolerate it but require it suggests your home world has very different chemical composition than most habitable planets. Earth has a lot of iron, Sarah confirmed. It is in our soil, our water, our rocks. The whole planet is rich with it. Our ancestors evolved to use what was available. We adapted. That word again. Adapted. Zeldar was beginning to understand that adaptation was the central theme of human existence. Where other species evolved to fit comfortable environmental niches, humans had evolved to survive in multiple hostile environments simultaneously. Tell me about your immune system, Prendar requested. I am detecting trillions of microorganisms living inside your body. Bacteria, viruses, other entities I cannot classify. They should be destroying you from within. Why are you not dead? Sarah actually laughed at this question, a short barking sound that made several Valorians flinch. She immediately tried to soften her expression, realizing her natural reactions were frightening to them. Sorry? I'm not laughing at you. It is just that the question seems strange to me. Those microorganisms are not trying to kill me. Most of them are helpful. We call them our microbiome. They live in our digestive system, on our skin, everywhere. They help us break down food, produce vitamins, even fight off harmful bacteria. We could not survive without them. You have formed a symbiotic relationship with organisms that would be deadly to us, Miralyn said, her voice filled with wonder. You turned potential threats into allies. We did not have a choice. Earth is covered with microorganisms. Billions upon billions of them in every environment. If early humans had not developed ways to coexist with some and fight off others, we would have gone extinct before we ever developed intelligence. Prendar continued his examination, each new discovery more astounding than the last. Sarah's muscle density was triple that of a comparable Valerian. Her bone structure could withstand impacts that would shatter their fragile skeletons. Her pain tolerance was extraordinary, her healing rate abnormal, her sensory capabilities adapted for a world of constant danger. How do you sleep? Telmore asked suddenly. The young navigator had been listening quietly, but his curiosity finally overcame his fear. On a world with so many predators, how do you rest without being killed? Sarah considered the question. We sleep lightly. Part of our brain stays alert even when we are unconscious, listening for threats. We also developed complex social structures. We sleep in groups, taking turns watching for danger. Safety in numbers. As our civilization advanced, we built secure shelters, locked doors, alarm systems. We found ways to protect ourselves while vulnerable. But that implies you were prey as well as predators, Zeldar observed. You were hunted by other species on your world. Oh yes, Sarah confirmed. Humans were not always at the top of the food chain. For most of our evolutionary history we were in the middle. Big cats hunted us. Bears hunted us. Wolves hunted us. Even smaller predators could kill isolated humans, especially children or elderly individuals. We survived by being smart, by working together, and by refusing to give up. She stood from the examination table and walked to the viewport. Through the transparent material, she could see her ship, the Persistence, still connected to the Star Seeker by docking clamps. Her expression softened as she looked at the damaged vessel that had carried her crew across the void. You want to know about Earth, she said quietly. You want to understand how we survived there. Let me tell you a story. The Valorians gathered closer, their fear temporarily forgotten in the face of their curiosity. Sarah began to speak, and her words painted a picture of a world beyond their darkest nightmares. Earth orbits a yellow star we call Sol. The planet is approximately 4.5 billion years old. Life began in the oceans about 3.5 billion years ago. Simple single-celled organisms that eventually grew more complex. For most of Earth's history, life was confined to the water. Then, about 400 million years ago, some brave organisms crawled onto land. What did they find there? Miralyn asked. Death, Sarah said simply. The land was harsh. Extreme temperatures, no water except in rivers and lakes, and eventually, other creatures that wanted to eat you. But life persisted. Plants evolved to survive on land. Then animals followed. Evolution became an arms race. Predators evolved better ways to hunt. Prey evolved better ways to escape. Over millions of years, both sides became incredibly efficient at survival. She turned from the viewport to face them. Humans appeared relatively recently, only about 300,000 years ago. We evolved from earlier primate species that lived in trees. When climate changes forced us down from the trees and onto the open grasslands, we had to adapt quickly. We were not the fastest animals. We were not the strongest. We did not have claws or fangs or armor. What we had were brains and endurance. Endurance? Zeldar questioned. Humans can run for hours without stopping. Most animals on Earth can sprint very fast for short distances, then they must rest. They overheat. But humans evolved an incredible cooling system. We sweat. We release water through our skin, which evaporates and cools our bodies. This allows us to keep running long after other animals collapse from exhaustion. Sarah demonstrated by miming a running motion. Our ancestors would track prey across the grasslands. An antelope might run away at incredible speed, but we would follow. Slowly. Steadily. Never stopping. Eventually the antelope would be too exhausted to run anymore. It would collapse. And we would be there, still moving, ready to make the kill. We call it persistence hunting. We literally ran our prey to death. The horror on the Valerian faces was evident. The image Sarah had created, of humans as tireless pursuers who never stopped, never gave up, who hunted by pure relentless determination, was the stuff of nightmares. But that was not the only danger on Earth, Sarah continued. Humans also had to survive predators. Big cats like lions, tigers, and leopards. They are ambush hunters, faster and stronger than any human. If they catch you alone, you die. So we learned never to be alone. We formed tribes, groups of humans who stayed together for protection. We developed language to communicate complex ideas. We created weapons. First simple tools like rocks and sticks, then spears, bows, eventually firearms. You developed weapons to fight your own planet's predators? Telmore asked. We developed weapons to fight everything. Predators. Prey. Each other. Humans have always been good at making things that kill. It is not something I am proud of, but it is part of our history. She walked slowly around the medical bay, her movements careful and controlled. Despite her friendly demeanor, the Valorians could see the predator in her gait, the balanced stance, the awareness of her surroundings, the coiled readiness to react to threats. Earth has 7 continents and multiple climate zones. Humans spread across all of them. We adapted to frozen Arctic regions where temperatures drop so low that exposed skin freezes in minutes. We adapted to deserts where no rain falls for years and daytime temperatures can kill in hours. We adapted to jungles where every plant and animal seems designed to poison or eat you. We adapted to mountains so tall that the air becomes too thin to breathe. Wherever we went, no matter how hostile the environment, humans found a way to survive. How? Prendar asked. How did you survive in so many different environments? Most species are specialized for one specific habitat. We used technology, Sarah explained. When it was cold, we made fire. We killed animals and took their fur to make warm clothing. We built shelters from wood and stone and ice. When it was hot, we found shade and water. We dug wells to access groundwater. We domesticated animals to help us work. We developed agriculture to grow our own food instead of relying on hunting and gathering. Every challenge we faced, we found a technological solution. She paused and her expression grew more serious. But technology could not protect us from everything. Earth has diseases, microscopic organisms that invade the body and destroy it from within. Throughout our history, plagues have swept across human populations, killing millions. The Black Death killed 1/3 of Europe in the 14th century. Smallpox killed entire civilizations when it was introduced to the Americas. Influenza pandemics killed tens of millions in the 20th century. Even now, with all our medical advances, disease remains one of our greatest threats. Yet you survived, Marilyn observed. Your species was not wiped out by these plagues. Some humans always survived. Our immune systems learned to recognize and fight these diseases. Our bodies created antibodies, specialized cells that remembered pathogens and could destroy them if they returned. It was evolution in real time. The humans who could resist disease lived long enough to have children. Those children inherited stronger immune systems. Generation after generation, humans became better at fighting off infections. Sarah looked down at her hands, flexing her fingers. Eventually, we learned to fight back more deliberately. We discovered vaccines, ways to teach our immune systems to recognize diseases before they could harm us. We developed antibiotics, chemicals that kill bacteria. We invented surgical techniques to repair damaged bodies. We built hospitals and trained doctors. We declared war on disease itself, and slowly we began winning. Your entire civilization is structured around survival, Zeldar said. It was not a question but a realization. Everything you build, everything you create, every advancement in your technology, it all comes back to staying alive in a hostile environment. Yes, Sarah agreed. Earth taught us that life is fragile. Death is always close. If you want to survive, you must be prepared. You must be strong. You must never give up, no matter how bad things seem. She moved back to the viewport, looking at the stars. When we finally developed space travel, it was the culmination of millions of years of survival instinct. We looked at the sky and saw not a limit but a new frontier. A new environment to adapt to. New challenges to overcome. The same drive that made us spread across Earth made us reach for the stars. Tell me about the persistence, Zelda requested. What was your mission? Sarah's expression brightened slightly. The Persistence was one of Earth's first deep space exploration vessels. Our mission was to travel to nearby star systems, search for habitable worlds, and establish first contact with any intelligent species we encountered. We had a crew of 23. Scientists, engineers, pilots, doctors. All volunteers who knew the risks. What happened to your ship? Her expression darkened. 3 years into our mission, we encountered a spatial anomaly. Something our sensors could not adequately predict. It appeared to be a stable wormhole, but when we approached for study, it destabilized. The energy discharge damaged our primary engines and killed 17 of my crew instantly. The rest of us barely made it to the cryopods. We programmed the ship to broadcast a distress signal and entered stasis, hoping someone would find us before our power ran out. I am sorry for your loss, Zelda said quietly. The Valorians understood grief, even if their species rarely experienced violence. Thank you. They were good people. They deserved better than to die in the void, far from home. Sarah was quiet for a moment, then straightened her shoulders. But 6 of us survived. That is what matters now. That is what we do. Humans survive. We endure. We keep going even when everything seems hopeless. Prendar had been reviewing his medical data, and he looked up with concern. Captain Chin, I must ask you a difficult question. Based on my scans, your body is experiencing cellular damage consistent with extended cryostasis. Your crew members will have the same damage. With our current medical technology, we can treat this, but full recovery will take months, perhaps longer. Sarah considered this information calmly. Will we survive? Yes, but you will be weak for some time. You will need medical support, proper nutrition, physical therapy to rebuild muscle mass. Then we will do what is necessary. Humans are good at recovery. We heal. It is what we do. The conversation was interrupted by a communication from the Star Seeker's bridge. A junior officer's voice came through the intercom, speaking rapidly in Valerian. Zelda listened, his scales paling. What is it? Sarah asked, reading his body language. I have received word from Galactic Assembly headquarters. They have reviewed our initial report about your species and your planet. They are sending a diplomatic vessel to make formal first contact. He paused, clearly troubled. But they are also sending military escorts. Your designation as beings from a Class-15 world has caused significant concern among the Assembly's member species. They are afraid of us, Sarah said. It was a statement, not a question. Yes. You must understand, in the entire history of the Galactic Assembly, no species from a Class-15 world has ever been discovered. The theoretical models all suggested that such worlds could not produce intelligent life. The fact that Earth exists, that humans exist, challenges everything we thought we knew about evolution and habitability. Some Assembly members fear that a species forged by such a harsh world might be aggressive, violent, expansionist. Sarah crossed her arms, a defensive posture. And are they wrong to fear that? Humans have been violent throughout our history. We have fought wars that killed millions. We have developed weapons capable of destroying our entire planet. We are capable of terrible things when we feel threatened. Her honesty shocked the Valorians. Most species would deny such accusations, would present themselves in the best possible light. But Sarah was different. She spoke truth, even uncomfortable truth. But, she continued, we are also capable of incredible compassion. The same instinct that makes us fight to protect our families makes us want to help others in need. The same intelligence that created weapons also created medicine, art, music, literature. The same drive that made us conquer Earth makes us want to explore the universe and find friends among the stars. We are not monsters. We are just survivors who learned that survival sometimes requires violence, but always requires cooperation. Zelda studied this human carefully. In his centuries of life, he had encountered many species. He had learned to read body language, to sense deception, to understand motivations. When he looked at Sarah Chin, he saw no deception. He saw only honesty, strength, and a deep hope that humanity would be welcomed into the galactic community. "I will send my own report to the Assembly," he said. "I will tell them what I have observed. That humans are dangerous, yes, but also honorable. That they value life even while being prepared to fight for it. That they seek friends, not enemies. Whether the Assembly listens to an old explorer like me, I cannot say. But I will speak truth just as you have." Sarah smiled, that strange expression that showed teeth but conveyed warmth. "Thank you, Captain. That means more than you know. Humans have dreamed of meeting alien life for thousands of years. We have imagined countless scenarios of first contact. Some of them ended in war. Some ended in friendship. I am glad ours is leaning toward the latter." "What will you do now?" Marilyn asked. "Will you return to Earth?" "Eventually. But first I would like to meet this galactic assembly. I want to see what other species exist in the universe. I want to learn from them, share knowledge with them, understand how they survived their own worlds and built their civilizations. And I want to tell them about humanity, about Earth, about everything we have overcome and everything we hope to achieve." She walked to the center of the medical bay, standing tall despite her weakened condition. "I want to show the galaxy that yes, humans come from a world of death. Yes, we are survivors and fighters. But we are also dreamers and builders. We are scientists and artists. We are individuals who care deeply about our families and our communities. We are not perfect. We have flaws and fears and failures. But we are also capable of greatness. And we are ready to take our place among the stars." The Valorians looked at each other, communicating through subtle shifts in their bioluminescent patterns. Finally Zeldar nodded. "Then let us prepare you for that meeting. Your crew will be revived gradually over the next few days. We will provide medical care and support. We will repair the Persistence as much as possible with our technology. And when the diplomatic vessel arrives, we will introduce humanity to the Galactic Assembly together." "Together," Sarah repeated, extending her hand toward Zeldar. "That is a good word. Humans have learned that we accomplish more when we work together. I hope your assembly can learn the same about working with humanity." Zeldar looked at the extended hand, understanding from his cultural database that this was a human gesture of agreement and friendship. Carefully, he reached out with his own webbed hand and grasped Sarah's firmly. Her grip was strong but controlled. She was aware of her strength and careful not to hurt him. "Together," he agreed. Over the following days, the remaining crew members of the Persistence were revived one by one. Each awakening brought the same initial shock, the realization that they had been found by aliens, that first contact had been made, that everything had changed. But like Sarah, they adapted quickly. They answered questions about Earth and humanity. They shared stories of their world. They demonstrated human technology and explained human culture. The Valorians observed and recorded everything. What they learned both frightened and inspired them. Humans were indeed dangerous. They were physically powerful, mentally resilient, and capable of violence when necessary. But they were also curious, creative, and deeply social. They formed strong emotional bonds with each other. They valued honor and loyalty. They had a sense of humor that often confused the Valorians but seemed essential to human mental health. When the diplomatic vessel from the Galactic Assembly finally arrived, it brought representatives from 7 different species. All of them approached the Persistence with a mixture of fear and fascination. They had read the reports. They had seen the data. They knew that humans came from a Class-15 world. They expected monsters. What they found were people. Different people, certainly. Stronger and more aggressive than most species. But still people with hopes and dreams, fears and aspirations. People who had survived the impossible and emerged with a desire to explore, to learn, to connect with others. The first official diplomatic meeting was held aboard the Star Seeker, in a conference room hastily modified to accommodate human environmental preferences. Sarah Chin represented humanity, flanked by her surviving crew members. The assembly representatives sat across from them, their various forms reflecting the diversity of galactic life. The formal introductions were made. Titles were exchanged. Then the senior assembly diplomat, an ancient being from a species known for their wisdom and patience, spoke directly to Sarah. "Commander Chin, the Galactic Assembly has reviewed all available information about your species and your home world. We have considered the implications of humanity joining our community. We have debated the risks and benefits. And we have reached a decision." Sarah waited, her expression calm but her heart racing. This moment would define humanity's future among the stars. The Assembly recognizes Earth as the homeworld of an intelligent spacefaring species. We acknowledge humanity's right to exist, to explore, and to seek membership in our community. We extend an invitation to establish formal diplomatic relations between Earth and the Galactic Assembly. We offer friendship, knowledge sharing, and cooperation. Sarah felt relief wash through her. Around her, her crew members exhaled collectively. They had been accepted. Against all odds, despite their dangerous origin, humanity had been welcomed. However, the diplomat continued, we also issue a warning. Your species' history of violence and conflict is concerning. We ask that humanity approach galactic civilization with care and respect. We ask that you learn from the mistakes of your past and choose a path of peace in your future. Can you do this? Sarah stood, drawing herself to full height. She looked at each assembly representative in turn, meeting their eyes with confidence and sincerity. I cannot promise that humanity will never make mistakes. We are flawed just like every species. But I can promise that we will always strive to be better. We will learn from those who came before us. We will respect the rules and customs of galactic civilization. And we will prove, through our actions, that a species from a death world can be a force for good in the universe. She placed her hand over her heart, a human gesture of sincerity. Earth made us survivors. But we choose to be more than that. We choose to be builders, explorers, friends. We choose to take everything our harsh world taught us, the strength, the resilience, the determination, and use it to protect and help others. That is what humanity offers the galaxy. Not just our strength but our commitment to using that strength wisely. The assembly representatives conferred among themselves. Then one by one they signaled their acceptance. The ancient diplomat smiled, an expression that transcended species barriers. Then welcome humanity to the Galactic Assembly. Welcome to a universe that is much larger, stranger, and more wonderful than you ever imagined. We have much to teach you and we suspect you have much to teach us. Let this be the beginning of a long and prosperous friendship. Sarah returned the smile. Behind her, her crew members embraced each other, tears streaming down their faces. They were no longer alone in the universe. They were no longer outcasts from a death world. They were members of a galactic community, representatives of a species that had overcome the impossible. As the celebration began, Sarah looked through the viewport at the stars. Somewhere out there, Earth orbited its yellow sun, unaware that its children had just changed the course of galactic history. Somewhere out there, billions of humans continued their daily lives, not knowing that they were no longer alone. But they would know soon. Sarah would make sure of it. She would return to Earth with news of the Galactic Assembly. She would tell humanity about the wonders that awaited them among the stars. And she would prepare her species for the greatest adventure in human history, the journey from a single harsh world to a place among the civilizations of the galaxy. Earth had made them survivors.